Okay, welcome you all with love. You start with a prayer, which is about the merging of the heavens and the earth, which is really, really important to get if we're going to integrate all the forces that are coming onto the planet for us and to create peace. Nishimikud, Kudashabihu, Ushihente, Bi ilu or imulaya, Jimike, Belovke, Yidashim Shem Kuzrael Kolam, Amen. Very good. Today there's a lot of conflict and confusion. And I've been very impressed by the writings of Nathan Sharansky, who stood up in the world of, let's say, moral confusion. And besides from spending 8 years in the Gulag, which were tremendously spiritually empowering to him, he came up with an understanding of really how to handle the kind of world situation and his situation. And his teaching, on one level, is about moral clarity. And what exactly does that mean? Well, we kind of joke. Archimedes kind of teaches, if you're going to move the world, you actually have to have a place to stand. Otherwise, you have a problem. You fall off the world. And moral clarity has to do with standing really in two kind of positions. One is aligned with the moral, spiritual, and ethical teachings of the ages. And we're talking about the Torah, we're talking about the 10 speakings, we're talking about the Tao, we're talking about the Great Red Way, we're talking about the niyamas and yamas of the yogic Eightfold Path. They're essentially telling the same thing, teaching the same thing. And the second thing is your own deep understanding of who you are, moving from the nothing to the something, the deep inner truth of who we are, and operating from that deep truth. So when we begin to have that kind of place to stand, we have a way of looking at and understanding the world. And truly, we have a way of making peace. Because if we understand who we are, we understand that we are the light of God. And guess what? Everyone else is the light of God. And guess what? Not just all people, but all peoples are the light of God. And whatever way that they're playing it out. But it gives us a way of understanding. When we don't have that understanding, we see people who disagree on some political issues as our enemies, people to be killed. I mean, that's what's going on in the United States. It's totally disconnected from the great spiritual teachings and from the great truth, which is of that oneness. What to do? Well, he talked about it in a very interesting way. He talked about two kinds of, let's say, governments. Use the word government, countries. One, which is based on fear, and which requires great, great moral courage to speak up against the evil. And the other one, he talked about as a free society. And I use the word free. I didn't say perfect, I said free. big difference, in which we needed moral clarity to identify the evil forces in the society. Because it's not very simple. It's not very clear. So we can make an argument, for example, looking at PC. Okay? Well, there's good reasons to have some levels of PC. And then, as we move it forward a little bit, PC means political control. This is a way of controlling people, controlling their minds. And with a fair amount of penalty. Suddenly we're moving now from a free society to a prison society, to a fear-based society. And finally, PC moves into perversion of consciousness. Because that society begins defining in its own terms to control you, to enslave you. So he understood that. And as he looked at the moral and spiritual issues of the day, which were playing out in political levels, he was able to take a stand. Now, that stand was really interesting, because there's one other principle, which is the power of freedom to uplift the world. So he eventually was released from the Gulag. Eventually he migrated to Israel, and he returned to the Gulag where he was in prison for 8 years. People thought, what are you doing? Are you some kind of masochist or something? But he said, he went in and he had some deep insight, and he said, when I was in prison, they said, no one supports you, all the dissenters have been arrested, you are alone, you are wrong, and we, KGB, were the one interrogating them, are right, and this great Soviet Union is right, and you are nothing. And all the dissenters around the world are nothing. And he rested in his moral clarity. Now here I am 20 years later, he said, and KGB's gone, Soviet Union's gone, all the Jewish people who were trapped in Russia, 1 million of them migrated to Israel, being free of all this. And because I was able to rest in the moral clarity, in the perennial cosmic truth of the situation, I was able to make it. And those people who were resting in their PC, perversion of consciousness, they're not here. Done. And he said, what that taught me is the power of freedom, real freedom, to create the evolution of consciousness. It's a very powerful lesson. He says that they're not here, I'm here. And I rested in that moral clarity, where I could be there. They were human, everything was what we were, but I'm here, they're not. It's a very, very, very powerful lesson in terms of spiritual life. Now, where does that go for us? Well, it has to do with, can we find the moral clarity based on the perennial spiritual teachings, which allows us to look at the political situation, which allows us to look at the social situation, and see it in a much bigger picture. And that's the key, because we can take, as he points out, okay, and this is a while ago, okay, this is not new, it's maybe a while ago, 30, 40 years ago, is that if you do not have the moral clarity, humanistic concepts can really be used to support evil. That's what he saw, because he saw that in the Soviet Union, He was locked up because of humanistic concepts which were meant to enslave people, but they could say the right thing and justify killing millions of people. That's a pretty important little idea here. So something went wrong. He had the courage to stand up against that evil force. Now, in a free country, he identifies it as a place where you can actually speak your mind without being penalized, publish your ideas without being penalized, and in essence, stand up for your beliefs. Now, I'll look at this country, and we're on the edge. And he was an example of what is needed to return us to freedom, which is to go back to moral clarity and understand the bigger spiritual picture, and from that get some idea what to do. And in that, we no longer see our friends and neighbors who may disagree with us politically as our enemies to be killed, but as actually people we can talk to and discuss and share and grow collectively. So this insight of Natan Sharansky, learned the hard way in the Gulag, 8 years, is worth understanding. It's seeing that we are all the spark of God. And when we work together, collectively sharing ideas, disagreeing with ideas, fine, it doesn't matter. It's important we recognize that we are that spark of God. And in that way, know our oneness. So may everyone be blessed with that oneness, and in that oneness, may we bring true peace to this country and to the world. Amen. Aho. Om Takyasa. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.